that time again when we dive into nothing but football. Everybody loves it. Everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to be a player, so to say. Hey, this is VAR Zambia, and I'm your host, John Mark Lukonde, welcoming you to yet another special edition powered, yes, by, of course, Bet Lion. And of course, we're so excited that you've been able to join us. For those of you sending in your messages, do so on our YouTube platform. Send in your messages. Our topic for today is FAWUZ protecting and promoting the player's interest? Is FAWUZ protecting and promoting the player's interest? And to dive into this and much more, with me is the one and only Chips. Chips, hi.
Fantastic. Beautiful intro, by the way.
Yeah.
To a show that talks about the beautiful game.
Kudos to me. Kudos.
Well done. You're part of a union somewhere? I'm just saying. You're part of a union somewhere because you chairman, chief negotiator. Usichtia negotiate weka my salary increment. Then my members.
That's what happens. Who pays that? Anyway, let me not. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But we'll be able to dive into the union indeed to find out if at all they actually offer the proper services for their players as well.
Yeah.
And there's actually so much else we're going to be able to dive into. Yeah. Apart from that, we'll be talking about Carlo Ancelotti, named as the Brazil national team head coach.
Absolutely. I think it's something that really, for me, shows that, the Brazilian, FA, I think is moving with the times because, this is the first time they have decided to go with a foreign-based coach. All the 5 World Cups that they've managed to win, those 5 stars, you can see, it was indigenous, or should I say local coaches, leading them to those titles. But hey, it's been tumultuous times for, the Brazilian side. They haven't won the World Cup since 2002. By the time the next World Cup in 2026 comes around in the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico, it'll be 24 years. So yeah, something needs to happen because clearly the local coaches are not doing it for them. But yeah, I think it's a good appointment because if there's any foreigner who understands the mentality of the Brazilian player, it has to be Carlo Ancelotti.
No problem yako. Ngena kudala mu segment. Introduction.
Oh, sorry. Sorry,
Zesco United also will be able to play, or rather, did even win the ABSA Cup final. Kudos to them against Red Arrows. We'll dive into that. James Kamanga. The only way I'd have given you or got back to that is if you actually got it wrong.
Guys,
editing, don't make sure. Otherwise, we'll not stop hearing the end of this. All right, and then also James Kamanga set to play his final game before he retires. Very, very emotional. We'll be able to dive into that. And also the elephant in the room. We have a new FAZ president, Keith Mwemba. Drum roll, please. You are supposed to wait for me to say drum roll, please.
Oh, sorry, it's not scripted.
It's not scripted. Uzi what they'll just cut that part and say, my podcast yam.
I was sorry. Okay, sorry, guys. I'll wait for the drum roll.
Before we dive into anything else, just a reminder that, of course, VAR Zambia is powered by, of course, Bet Lion. Make sure that you engage with Bet Lion. You can definitely never go wrong. Let's go straight to, of course, what we did even talk about briefly in terms of Ancelotti named as the Brazil national team coach. For me, I'm very, very interested because, to be honest with you, I did not expect at least him to exit Real Madrid in this fashion. Most of the times when you are ascending from a club and you're going to be able to become a national team manager, from club manager to national team manager, you have got that pedigree from winning. But to be honest with you, nobody expected him to have a bad season and then transition to Brazil. I don't understand that sequence. Is it because of the history that he has as Carlo Ancelotti?
Well, it's a number of factors. But as I was saying earlier on, if there's somebody who is not Brazilian, who understands the mentality of Brazilian footballers, it has to be Carlo Ancelotti. Look at his background. I mean, this is a guy who coached AC Milan to UEFA Champions League, glory. In that side, there was the like of Cafu. He's coached Ronaldinho. He's coached Kaká. So he understands, Brazilian football. In this current side, I mean, you've got Vinicius Jr., you've got Rodrigo, you've got Endrick, who he just brought in. And sandwiched in between, you know, those two spells, he also had an initial spell at Real Madrid where he had the likes of, you know, Marcelo in his squad. So he understands how, you know, Brazilian footballers work. So maybe from that perspective, it's not such a big surprise. And considering that, you know, Brazil needs somebody with significant experience on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. And this is a guy who's coached and won trophies in all 5 of the major, you know, European, you know, big, you know, leagues, if you like, but also has got that experience of working with Brazilian players. So I think that combination is quite good, you know, for Brazil moving
forward. Will he
forward.
bring out the best of Vinicius Jr.? Yes, he's done it before with Real Madrid, but he's got the likes of Rafinha to work with, the likes of Endrick, when you look at Brazil on paper, they've got stars.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, we have drifted away from those days, the glory days of the likes of Ronaldinho, the glory days of the likes of Kaká, Cafu, just to mention but a few, Dida, great Brazilian players from the goal right until the strikers as well. Do you feel he's the one to actually bring them to the glory days, and especially with the short time that he has, because the World Cup is just around the corner?
Absolutely, because I'll tell you one thing. You've already mentioned that the fact that this Brazilian, you know, current crop of players, individually they look great on paper, but it's all about bringing them together, harnessing their different, you know, capabilities so that they work together as a team. But the problem also that you have when you've got so-called big stars as individuals in a team is that you've got big egos. Now, when you've got big egos, you need a big coach to manage those egos. And who better than a man who's won, you know, Champions League, Serie A's, you know, La Ligas. For me, I think that's the direction that, you know, the Brazilian FA have decided to go, to bring in somebody who's a father figure. You know, sometimes when you walk into a dressing room and you're a player, sorry to say so, you're a player playing in Europe, playing probably in the top 5 leagues. And then you come to Zambia, and then the national team coach has just coached in Ghana. You see what I mean? Sometimes you start looking down on him. I'm not saying that the coaches...
Are there successful managers we have seen who were not prominent? They got into a dressing room of stars and they made it?
Yeah, there are a lot of them. But you know, one thing that they have, for instance, I'll give you a practical example of Zinedine Zidane. Why the players really believed in his abilities is because he came into that dressing room, commanded respect. Why? Because this is a guy who has already won the World Cup as a player. So the players that are playing under him watch YouTube videos of this guy.
Pep Guardiola was not prominent.
Yeah, but
he came into a star-studded lineup, got rid of the likes of Ronaldinho, Eto'o, but look at what he did.
Not particularly, because Pep Guardiola won the Champions League. People forget that. He was part of the 1992 Barcelona side that won the Champions League, the first Champions League. So in the eyes of many of those players, yes, it was a star-studded side, Messi, but look at the bulk of that team. The bulk of that team were graduates from La Masia, the academy. Before he took over the job as you know, Barcelona head coach, he was coach of the B team. He's the one who graduated players like Sergio Busquets into that, you know, senior team. So he already commanded that respect, and they already understand the history of Barcelona. This is a guy who played number 6 when they won the Champions League for the first time in 1992, beating Fiorentina. Oh, is it Fiorentina? No. Yeah, Fiorentina. So for me, it clearly shows that, you know, from that perspective, he had the dressing room in check. He had the respect of the players because they understand these are the guys who the foundation of Barcelona is laid upon. So in that way, maybe it's not the best example. But for me, that's what I believe. It's either in modern day football, you're a great player, so you command respect, or you're a great coach. You might not have been a great player, but you're a great coach, and you come with that pedigree. I think that's what Ancelotti comes with. Coming into that dressing room as a coach who has won everything, the players automatically are going to listen to him. Why? Because he's got a proven track record. He can actually tell them in and now in a chichi. The problem with me and you, my friend, is that we'll go into the national team there and become coaches. Patson Dragazan for Division 3, unacha hapo iwe.
Ufuna utenga autograph ya Patson. Nishindiwe manage. Iwe, let's move on. Zesco United managed to beat Red Arrows in the Absa Cup final as well.
Yeah.
For you, did you actually expect this? Especially, you did.
So kukumbela shela tapadola ma ulufyanya hapa manje. I put you in your place.
That's why I don't want us to take too much time on this one, because you actually got it right, and kudos to you, honestly, Chips, because you did see it coming.
So a drum roll.
A drum roll. If Teresa was there, would have done the drum roll.
Anyway, Yeah, I think what fueled this Zesco United side was the mere fact that they missed out narrowly on the league, but they used that as fuel to galvanize the team so that at least they get something in terms of silverware, in this particular season, because it would have been, I think, catastrophic for this, Zesco side, to not win any sort of silverware for the 2024-2025 season after, what they've put in. I mean, look at their league form. Defensively, the best team in the league. 18 goals that they've, conceded in 33 games. The meanest defense. So clearly, it's that foundation that they've used, to ensure that they get success even in, in the Barclays Cup, because they're very, very difficult to break down. And yes, in this particular game, they did concede, but, it's a Zesco side that really, really is watertight at the back. And normally, one goal gets the job done for him. Sadly, in this particular game, they had to come back from, they had to score first, but obviously, Red Arrows, had other ideas in this particular encounter. But yeah, I just thought that it was written in the stars that they'll win this, Barclays Cup. And yeah, truth to be, they managed to win their 7th, ABSA Cup, title, the most, decorated side in terms of, the ABSA Cup itself, because no other team has won this competition more than Zesco United.
Indeed. And also very quickly, James Manga set to retire with his final game over the weekend. Someone who we have talked about for years on end.
Yeah.
And, there's some careers when you see them, you're thinking to yourself, will this career ever come to an end? Because you're just so used to him being on the starting lineup. And to be honest with you, he's also going to be missed, at least in terms of just the environment in the dressing room as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I must make mention that, the story is actually intertwined because, James Manga missed one of the penalties in the ABSA Cup final. Unfortunately for him, it would have been the last, trophy that he would have lifted in his, glittering career.
But that must not take away the fact that he's a great player.
I'm just saying, well, he did miss, didn't he? He did miss one of those penalties.
Are you from Zanako or what?
But yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's represented Zambia 58 times, scored 17 goals. He's amongst the top scorers in the history of Zambian, top scorers in the Chipolo Polo shirt. So, kudos to him. I think we'll be able to, reflect a little bit more on his career after his final game. Maybe there'll be another twist. Maybe he scores a hat-trick against Zanako. Hopefully not, because that's my team.
I was going to be shocked. Like, am I listening to the same thing? Okay. And also kudos to him. I think it's very, very important that we are hoping that at least the fans on that particular day would turn out and give their kudos and their respects and at least chant his name.
Red Arrows have actually made it clear. I mean, they posted on their socials saying that it's free entry as long as you come in a Red Arrows jersey. To support, the talismanic, James Manga on the actual day against Zanako on Saturday. So they are hoping that, people come out in their numbers to give him a fitting farewell.
Do they know how much Zambians love free things? Is Ankala overcrowded?
Hopefully not, because we don't want a stampede or anything like that. But yeah, I'm sure, people out from, the base of Red Arrows fans, Shellstone area, Avondale area, Kamanga area, Chamba Valley, Munali, Kaunda Square. So, hopefully they come out in their numbers and, to support, James Manga. And hopefully, he can score in that game, but maybe Kasirechelo 2-1 tikawine bazalako. Yeah, tingachoke muligi.
Relegation I have nothing wrong against Zanako, but for the sake of chips, for the sake of chips, I might just... You never know. Mutwanga, let's also talk about, of course, something that I think when you look back, once we get into December, over 2025, will be one of the stories that will make Zambian football.
Yeah.
FAZ president selected. Keith Mwemba ascends, and of course, getting 45 votes, alongside, of course, the likes of the outgoing president who got 20, Kamanga got 20, and then the likes of Munaile. I don't know why they were saying nil. It was just 0. If we're just being polite.
Nil,
zero.
Impact.
So Mwanawasa, what was your reaction when you also found out that at least this time around there was no cancellation first and foremost? Kudos to the process.
Yes.
And of course, it was also very interesting, not just your reaction, but also find out the speeches by Manga and of course the incumbent.
I think the speeches after the election results were revealed, I think speaks volumes about, the maturity levels of those vying for the presidency in as far as the Football Association of Zambia, because you could hear, clearly the incoming president giving, giving praise to Andrew Manga and his executive for laying the foundation, that they are going to be able to build on. But also it was good to hear Andrew Manga actually, speak and say that, he wishes, Keith Mwemba and his executive all the best moving forward, and Zambian football ultimately should be the winner. So I think from those sentiments, I hope it's not just rhetoric, and I hope we can actually see that, Keith Mwemba can have an open door policy and walk into the office of Manga and to draw on his, experience. Of course, in football, we're all human beings. We will make mistakes. Sometimes we do things wrong. Sometimes we do things right.
Yeah.
So Kamanga's done a lot of things right as well in his tenure. 2 tenures that has been.
And he actually said that we'll build on what he's done.
Yeah, so
in my head I was thinking, is this Zambian? Because as Africans we don't say stuff like that. I'll build from a predecessor.
Yeah. But ultimately, as the dust settles, he's the 17th man to be at the helm of Zambian football. So everybody now should rally behind Keith Mwemba, because he's the man for the next 4 years who's at the helm of Zambian football. Let's support him. Let's ensure that at the end of the day, Zambian football moves from this level to the next level. I mean, we've always been talking about that maiden appearance, at the World Cup. Hopefully, it can be done under the tenure of Keith Mwemba, as long as we remain united as a football family.
Did you see that? I love to point at those moments that people don't want to talk about. But no, we have won. We have done it. And then one of the guys was like, serious. You could see that the celebrations were kind of limited, but that particular individual, if he was allowed to have gone on, but let's also talk about the way they also, the courtesy that they gave Kamanga's losing side, because to be honest with you, if you also take it the wrong way,
Me, I've been to FAZ elections before. Upeza losing candidate, Ali Namamine Achok.
Namamine?
Oh, no names mentioned, but
I was about to ask you, I know exactly about. Let's go down in the
archives. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
But honestly, I think I love the way they both camps handled it. Kamanga also gave kudos, and of course Keith also gave kudos. I think that was very, very mature.
Yeah.
And also backing what Keith had also talked about, to say he wants to bring unity, because his statements immediately he of course got the microphone were very, very vital. And I think moving forward, that's something that we want to see. Zambian football must go forward. And I love the fact that he's been talking about the spirit games. Football is a spirit game. And I think I'm guessing that maybe he's talking about the atmosphere that football brings to the nation once the team is also doing well. Remember 2012, the excitement, the euphoria that came with that as well. Hoping that we'll be able to get back to the glory days and hopefully get the national team, the men's national team, to the World Cup as well. We'll just take a brief break. And of course, after the break, we'll be able to dive into, of course, an interview with FAWUZ Secretary General. And of course, that's not other than Joe Kaunda. On the other side, even as Chips will be able to dive into that particular conversation. And then we'll be able to pick it up from, of course, that particular aspect right after this.
Welcome back to VAR Zambia, the only podcast that puts Zambian football under the microscope. And of course, on this edition, we're privileged to have Joe Kaunda, who is FAWUZ General Secretary, to discuss all things pertaining to the plight and welfare in as far as Zambian footballers is concerned. Mr. Kaunda, welcome to VAR Zambia.
Thank you, and it's great to be here.
For the sake of our viewers, let's begin from understanding. When was FAWUZ established, and what's its primary objective?
Well, FAWUZ is basically the Footballers and Allied Workers Union of Zambia. And as the name entails, it is a union for footballers.
Yeah.
Its primary objective is basically to give a voice to footballers and also to take care of the footballers' welfare. Welfare matters with regard to how much they're getting paid, their conditions of service, their conditions under which they work. Because remember, a footballer is a worker just like any other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were established in 2016.
Yeah.
2016 may seem a bit of a long time to date. However, it's a fairly new concept in Zambia, and in fact, footballers and the allied workers in the realm of football are only beginning to adjust, you know, to the realities of joining a union, because in the past, most employers have looked at footballers as mere entertainers.
Yes.
Yes. But you should realize that a footballer, just the same way as a nurse would report for work at a hospital or a clinic or wherever health facility, a footballer also exchanges his talent to make a living. Yeah. So as they offer their talent and skills to make a living, they have to be paid adequately. They have to put in a certain number of hours. The facilities that they're using have to be up to date, because factors like even just the pitch, the condition of the pitch on which they play, have a bearing on the longevity of.
Because pitch near office, yeah, my man.
Oh yes, Manning, because guy pitching at Siri Moshe.
Yeah.
You know, you find that they get susceptible to injuries, and when a player is injured, Nishkai, they are not working, they are not earning.
We've already touched on the fact that, you know, FAWUZ being a union, obviously the primary objective is, you know, protecting and promoting the players' interest. In that regard, you've also mentioned something that is really cardinal, the fact that you looked at conditions of services for these players and how they operate in their field, which is football. I know that from a South African point of view, the players' union have already discussed issues to do with minimum wage. Are we at that point where FAWUZ has struck that sort of accord with the clubs that are involved?
Sadly, we haven't reached that point yet. However, it's a door that we've been pushing. We've been in engagement with the Football Association of Zambia for a while now.
Yeah.
In fact, I need to state that we have a memorandum of understanding with the Football Association of Zambia. It was signed much earlier. I think the time that Great Carlo was at the helm. Yeah, so we need to see that being implemented fully. And among the issues that obviously come to the fore are issues to do with bargaining and the same, basically conditions of service come up. Zambia hasn't reached that point yet. Earlier in about 2021, there was a pilot project that was spearheaded by FIFA and FIFPro, our mother body, the World Players Union. To see that being implemented in 3 countries. That was Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. Our friends implemented that. Besides just talking about...
what is causing the delay in Zambia implementing it?
Well, there's been dragging of feet, I should say.
I see.
Yeah. Our friends implemented that a long time ago. So you find that the Players' Union represents the players in a much more broader fashion. There is a minimum wage in place. There are aspects to do with the dispute resolution chamber, what you call establishment of a dispute resolution chamber, which also involves the player union, so that cases involving players are quickly disposed of. Yeah, and there's actually much more that we can do if at all we work very closely with Football Association of Zambia. It's not to say that we haven't worked very well. We've had a very good working relationship with the Football Association of Zambia, but it's this particular issue that we feel has to be revisited. And now that there's change of guard at Football House, it's among some of the issues that at least we've seen commitments being made towards.
Okay. I know that there are a number of pressing issues that, you know, players do face in terms of welfare. Just outline what those are and how is, you know, FAWUZ helping players address those, you know, issues.
Yeah. Well, one thing for sure is understanding the contracts that they sign. We address that by offering a free service to our members.
Okay.
In fact, we even go beyond the scope of just dealing with our members. We offer our services for free. We are calling on all footballers to say, like, look, before you put pen to paper, understand what you're committing yourself to.
Yes.
Yeah, because there are some conditions that, you know, sorry to say, but are not worth the paper that they're written on. And obviously, some clubs take advantage of the ignorance of footballers. Mainly the understanding, even for us, the learned people, a contract is quite a complex document. So we offer legal services, we offer contract interpretation, so that we tell the player that, look, when you sign here, it means that you're committing yourself to this period of time with this club. There are some clubs that even specify that during this period of time, you are just going to earn so much. You know, that's almost like squeezing the player, because while the player is excited that I've signed up for this club, yeah, but they've basically regulated your earnings to a point where you know that for these 3 years, you won't get an increment, you won't get whatever, and that kind of situation. For the ladies too, you know, women's football has grown exponentially.
Yes.
You find that some are being made to sign contracts which say that, oh, if you get pregnant, then you stop getting paid. And we've made these presentations to FAZ because this is totally against human rights. And FIFA has come out really strongly. They've introduced these regulations to ensure that at least women players are protected.
Are there a lot of emotions when people are negotiating these things? Because sometimes from a club perspective, maybe the coach or the owner of the team is saying to themselves, well, this is our key player. And, you know, we're going into a crucial match. And then suddenly she's telling us she's pregnant, you know, ahead of a crucial match, for instance, like that. Do you sense that there's a lot of emotions sometimes that go into contract negotiations that, unfortunately, you as a players' union have to deal with coming from the club's perspective, especially when you're dealing with women's football?
Exactly. This is why we say utilize our services as a union, because we've got in-house lawyers, we've got experienced hands that will actually guide you, instead of acting from an emotional point of view. Because, look, it is a human right, especially if someone is female, to get pregnant. At some point they'll decide that, oh yeah, I want to start a family, and this is why deliberately FIFA has put in place regulations to protect women. All they have to do is inform their club to say, like, look, I'm expecting, I'm pregnant. And then their training will be tailored to, you know, their needs. There are regulations that state exactly, you know, what they allowed, what the females are allowed to do during that very delicate situation in their lives. But they need to continue getting paid, and they have to be guaranteed a place in the team. You know, well, even if they're not playing, like featuring, there's even a condition that says if at all they are willing to offer their services besides just playing football during that period that you know, they may be pregnant, may be moved to administrative issues and all that kind of situation. This is what's happening, in fact, you know, in the Western world. So as administrators, as soccer administrators, we need to come to terms with these realities. And
let's stay on this subject of women's football and their rights. I know that in other developed countries, Zambia obviously we're not yet there, but I want to find out if there's a deliberate push by FAWUZ to push clubs to have, you know, facilities where, for instance, there's a breastfeeding room at a training center for whatever club is involved? Because sometimes players want to come back or can come back, you know, whilst they're still breastfeeding.
Sure.
Is there conversations that are happening between FAWUZ and other, you know, clubs to ensure that we have facilities where, for instance, kids can be playing, you know, whilst their mothers are playing football or training?
Look, like I indicated, firstly, women's football is just blossoming now.
Yeah.
And we are blessed as a country that just from the early ages, we are reaching even as far as you know, representation at the FIFA World Cup.
Yeah.
However, the structures on the ground are quite not fully established. In fact, in Zambia, we are dealing with an issue where women's football is not even at professional level yet. It's it's semi-professional.
Yeah.
So that's where the challenge is coming. So what our approach is basically to involve the Football Federation, including the ministry, so that at least you know it's deliberate that they start to implement some of these things. We've had very positive talks, and you know, these obviously are continuing even with the new administration, to acknowledge that, look, this is a unique aspect of football. We can't discriminate, but we have to facilitate that the women are empowered to get the best out of you know, out of them.
Okay.
They have talent, but there are certain realities that we need to face up to. Like what you're saying, you can't hold someone from pursuing family life just because they're playing. The other thing that I would look at is mainly you notice that it's a very youthful group that is involved in sport before they even get into relationships, marriage, and that kind of situation. So that concern is not so rife. But look, there are still some girls that have kids, even as they're playing, and we are happy with some of the clubs that we've engaged with. At least there are facilities that are being provided to that effect.
Who does FAWUZ represent? I know that we've got different levels in terms of football. I mean, the Zambian Premier League, for instance, handles, you know, the professional side of the game, which is obviously the Super League for men and National Division, and of course, which you are calling semi-professional, which is Super League for women and the National Division for women. Make us understand, does FAWUZ also represent what we can call amateur footballers in this country?
Yes.
And not just the professional levels?
As a matter of fact, we have a broad mandate. Our constitution mandates us to cater for all footballers, starting from academies up to the very high professional league, which is the playing top flight football. So we have to ensure that at least conditions, even in academies, you know, are well taken care of. Okay. I know the amateur teams cannot join as full members, especially at you know, looking at their age and all that. Yeah. But it's still our mandate to ensure that at least you know, conditions that are prevailing in the academies are top notch. Okay. Because that's where our talent is coming from. That's where we harvest our, you know, creme de la creme. You know, if you start them young, then they grow up to be the superstars of tomorrow. Okay. So from there, then we move up to all these segments. In fact, the normal subscription that you'd get from a footballer to join FAWUZ is 2% of their salary. Where they are not on salary, it's just 50 kwacha per the whole year. Okay. And this we've extended to the women. Okay. To make them realize that we are there for them, and to as our contribution towards the development of soccer. Let's talk about membership. How many members, you know, does FAWUZ have currently as we speak in this interview? Currently, we're talking about over 1,000. Okay. But we're fishing from a pond that's about 6,000. Yeah. Yeah. So we have quite a mountain to climb. Of those 1,000, Some are obviously coming from the professional league. Some are, amateur. Yeah, but
these include Zambian players plying their trade beyond our borders, like
yes,
the Pats on Dakas, Fashion Sakalas, and so on and so forth.
Indeed.
Okay.
In fact, besides just Zambian players, even those professional foreign footballers that are applying their trade in Zambia are also allowed to join FAWUZ. In fact, we've represented quite a number of them in contractual dispute cases. Yeah,
we'll get into that in a moment or two.
Sure.
One might be saying, well, 1,000 that you currently have as membership, and obviously want to grow those numbers. Let's talk about finances. I mean, yours is quite a broad scope of work because, I mean, contract negotiations, looking at, a number of services that you provide. Where does FAWUZ get their funding from to do all this work?
I'm telling you, it's not an easy.
I know you've already
task.
touched on the fact that there's 2% that you derive and
Yes,
50 grand.
yes.
But where else? I'm sure that's not enough.
To tell you the truth, the 2% that we get from the players' subscriptions is basically just a drop in the ocean. We're privileged that FIFPro, our mother body, which is basically an equivalent of FIFA, although they oversee unions around the world. They give us a small subsistence that allows us at least to run
annual
around.
Grant?
Yes, they give us a grant to help us run around and ensure that at least programs for footballers are being implemented. Yeah, this is what makes it possible for us to even represent the players and not demand the players to pay, because the 2%, we feel that the 2%, even if it may be minimal, 2% is enough contribution to ensure that at least all their needs are attended to. Yeah, and you can imagine, just a lawyer to represent you, just to open a file for you at a law firm.
Yeah.
It costs quite a lot.
The legal fees are quite hefty.
Yes. But that's the service that we're offering to the footballers for free.
Okay.
And we say, like, look, we'll stand with you until this matter is disposed of. Yeah.
We're discussing is FAWUZ protecting and promoting the players' interest. One might argue there was a very high-profile case a couple of months ago of an under-20 player by the name of Lydia Shamalima.
Yeah.
Represented Zambia at the under-20, COSAFA. They did pretty well, scored in that tournament.
Yeah.
But she went on social media, literally in tears, crying and complaining that she cannot make ends meet. She's living with her grandmother, no food.
No.
She can hardly, pay rent and so on and so forth. Many people are saying FAWUZ were quiet during that course of that episode, and yet these are the players that you're supposed to be representing. Do you feel that players have got confidence in FAWUZ so that they can come to you rather than going on social media and making their plight known to the rest of the country?
Look, people may say that FAWUZ was quiet, but we were engaging behind the scenes.
Okay.
And it's not every matter where you have to rush to the press and all that. Engaging behind the scenes means that you have a chat with the club that she belongs to. You have a chat with the FA. You have a chat with several other potential sponsors that may contribute towards the well-being of a player. Let them take the spotlight. Most of the matters that we deal with are really of a personal nature, to a point where you feel that others may go to the press and get the spotlight. We would rather help individually. And
are there any cases where you think that
in fact,
you take the lead?
Sorry, probably if I could quickly add, Lydia's case is not the only case around.
Yeah.
And we are dealing with a broader case, and this is why I emphasize that we've been engaging the federation.
Okay.
Look, for me to have said that the women's football is still in its infancy, and you find that their top flight football is still considered semi-professional.
Yeah.
There are a number of girls teams that are still failing to pay the girls.
Yeah.
You find they just give them a little stipend to just get home and back for training the following day. And this we're saying, like, look, these are professionals.
Yeah.
Change their status to professional. If at all, okay, the definition of a professional player, according to FIFA, is one that has signed a contract. If you sign a contract, there are terms to it. You have to ensure that whatever services they're offering you, you have to pay for them. We've had a situation where a number of contracts are not being honored, especially in the women's teams. We understand the challenges that club owners have to go through, you know, to sponsor the girls, to ensure that the club meets its fixtures and the like. But there's a contract that is signed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what FIFA also states is that if you don't pay a player for 2 months, they have the right to walk away, to nullify the contract.
Yeah.
That is standard. But you find that our administrators, when they're reminded that, look, when the player reminds them that I haven't been paid for now 4 or 5 months, can I be released because some other team is, wants my services? They'll stand by their ground and say, no, you are our player, yet they're not being paid. We've fought with some of the players. This is why I say, like, usually our fights are behind the scenes. But I can assure you, we've never lost a case.
Are there any cases where you want to be seen as the chief negotiator, so to speak, mediating on behalf of players, that plays out in public?
Yeah, I think there are a number of cases that have come out.
I asked this question because currently there's a Zambian footballer in Libya, Kelvin Manga, Campa,
yes,
who's in distress mode, let's put it that way, because of the current situation, a civil war currently going on in Libya. Many stakeholders are saying, FAWUZ, that is your member, you are quiet. There's another, a case of one of the Copper Queens players in Ochumba, in China, obviously got injured on Zambia national team duty.
Yes.
The club is refusing to pay for her ACL medical treatment and so on and so forth. FAWUZ, once again, silent on that issue. Many people are asking, is FAWUZ really protecting these players, serving their interests?
Indeed. You see, as I indicated, in fact, kudos to the Minister of Sport.
Yeah.
He's taken the lead. We are following right behind him and supporting him to ensure that at least government does facilitate, the exit of our star player from Libya. It's not always that you need to rush to the press to start issuing statements. If anything, our resources are quite limited in that regard.
Okay.
Yeah. Government oversees the operations of sport in the country. Yeah, beyond the associations that are affiliated, So in this particular situation, government is the best to handle the evacuation of the player from Libya. And I think everyone must have seen the statement from the ministry.
Yes.
Yeah, the minister has a big heart in terms of looking out for we work very closely with ministry.
Yeah,
I should add. Has a big heart in terms of ensuring that at least all our players are accounted for and they are well and thriving. And right now, there's a lot of work that is going on behind the scenes to ensure that at least the player is safe. Coming to the issue of Ochumba, you see, we would also appreciate as a union if players can reach out to us.
Yeah.
whenever they're in distress, so that at least we attend to some of their urgent needs.
Yeah.
We are privileged as FAWUZ that our representation does not only end in Zambia. We have several sister unions around the world where we can engage and say, like, look, can you attend to this particular player?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they're in distress and they need to be assisted. I'm glad also that the FAZ president, Council Keith Mwitwa, has made a commitment towards at least looking into the issue for Ochumba.
Yeah.
As much as I'm talking about these international cases, FAWUZ has been hard at work dealing with local cases. And I did highlight to you that unfortunately our pockets are not that deep.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we have challenges in terms of meeting such kind of demands. However, not so long ago, we rehabilitated a player.
Mm-hmm.
Their club was literally refusing to take care of him.
Mm-hmm.
He was sidelined for 2 years. We paid for his medicals, and I'm glad to report that currently he's training. And we are looking forward to the next season so that at least he can be back on the pitch.
I know that there are so many cases out there that you're dealing with as FAWUZ, and yes, you've rightly put it that maybe your resources at your disposal are not enough and adequate to get around all those cases. Yeah. But there's so many high-profile cases where many argue that your voice is so silent. I mean, point in case, National League side, Leopards Hill Football Club, currently at the bottom of the league, confirmed that they've been relegated. Many would actually attribute that to the fact that the players haven't been paid the entire season. We're coming to the end of the season. I know that one of their coaches, Kelvin Singuluma, has decided to go the legal route against the club.
I'll tell you this for nothing. It's basically like a court matter that goes into court.
Yeah.
You don't rush to the media to start telling them about what's happening in the case and all that kind of situation. We have firstly the coach for Leopards Hill.
Yeah.
And 3 other players that we are representing from there. We made a general invitation to the players to say, look, we can represent your interests. But it's within their right, some of them to take the legal route.
Yeah.
Although in football, remember that mainly it's much more of arbitration than anything else.
Yeah.
They focus on that. But if they feel that the legal route is, will suffice, so be it. But we are presenting firstly the coach and the three players from the same club. So it's not true to say that we are silent.
Okay.
It's just that
it's a perception.
It's a perception, because when you file in a case, it's folly for one to rush to the press and start saying, no, look, I'm representing this person over this matter and that kind of situation. You'll see very soon we'll be announcing the successes as the eggs as they start to hatch.
I'll allow you to talk in depth about, the success stories that you can point to as FAWUZ.
Indeed.
But I wanted to get your thoughts, because it sounds like you're anti-media, so to speak. So to get you even here was probably a coup. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that let's not run around and pretend. The majority of the people that you represent, the players themselves, are on social media. How are you leveraging, or how are you using social media to educate players about the issues that you've elaborated upon? I mean, like issues like contracts and how they should understand them, contract negotiations, understanding the clauses in the contract before they even sign them, and so on and so forth.
It's pretty unfortunate that that's a perception.
Sorry.
Well, no. But I'll tell you this: my previous background is in media.
Okay.
So we try as much as possible to reach out through media. There are a number of cases that would come up, and tactfully, yes, we do publish quite a number. Even some very high-profile cases that have gone to FIFA.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the aspect of reaching out to players, let me touch this, and I'll go into the cases that we've had to deal with. Yeah. I did mention that in Zambia, even if we've been in existence from 2016, it's a fairly new concept.
Yeah.
In fact, a number of players, for us to even convince them to come over and basically have a discussion with us, or us visiting them, to discuss their prospects in terms of signing contracts with their clubs or improving on their contracts, is very difficult. Most of them feel that a contract is so secret that they have to hold it very close to their to their heart, without even understanding what they've signed up for. When things are happening there, they're getting all the monies and getting paid well. They forget that there's a union that exists. Remember, we're like an insurance company.
Yeah.
You know, when you're driving, for those that drive, when you're driving, you've bought a car nicely and whatnot. As long as you're not involved in any accident, you can't even think of the insurance. Yeah. But for those that think ahead and plan for a rainy day, you find that they've paid their premiums towards, insurance. They get involved in an accident, you find their car is replaced, or they get compensated for their loss and that kind of situation. It's basically the same concept that we have.
Yeah.
That player comes running to us. That player with a huge contract, who once had a huge contract, comes running to us the time that they terminate.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. We still have a lot to do to educate the players that, look, we are here for you. We are your servants, so to speak.
So how are you using social media in particular?
Social media, yes, we are very active on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. And sometimes we don't even need to go out to the people or visit clubs for us to publish whatever we're doing. On a weekly basis, we have a chat room where we basically engage sports players on the do's and don'ts in the sport. You find that we advise on how you're supposed to keep fit, issues to do with their contract, issues to do with their diet, matters affecting players and all that. This is a weekly chat room. We whenever we hold these clinics with players, we are very active on social media. And besides that, on mainstream media, it's quite common to see my face on ZNBC commenting on a number of issues. They invite me quite a number of times.
I saw that you were talking about 17 cases that you had before the player status committee.
Indeed.
Yeah, you're really blowing your trumpet.
I hope you've changed your mind now. I hope you've changed your mind now in terms of our outreach. Yeah, but I know a lot more still needs to be done.
Yeah.
So we appreciate the partnership that we've had with the radio stations around that also invite us to appear on their platforms.
Yeah.
Yeah. All this is meant to basically further our voice in terms of reaching out to the players, so that they know that FAWUZ exists because of them. Yeah.
Let's talk short term, long term, middle term.
Yeah.
What's the vision? Where do you want to see, the welfare of players, being improved over a period of time?
Starting with immediate term. As the FAZ president returns from Switzerland, we would like to sit down with him and look at how we can work together. The first thing starts with the representation of FAWUZ, say, on the player status committee, to ensure that at least issues and cases to do with players are taken care of. We've had a challenge in the sense that most of the cases that come up are presided over by a part-time committee called the Player Status Committee. These are professionals drawn from around, including club executives and that kind of situation, who sit once after a long time. So you find that sometimes players would get frustrated to say, why is my case taking long, and all that kind of situation. So it's among our immediate terms to ensure that at least we move in that direction. Another issue is to ensure that the players get insured. We've had this big challenge where you are playing, but you're not insured. You break your leg, your career ends. You get very little compensation under the current scope of things. We are happy that there's been a commitment from the FAZ president. This was included in his manifesto, actually, that we'll work together in that regard. Other issue is also rolling out a pension for players. Players have a very short career span. You know, it's either they leave early due to injury, or basically, you can't find many Chamangas nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, Chamanga 45 and is still playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you find that they leave the sport quite early, yet they have so much to offer. So now, what does that mean? Firstly, their contribution in their short space of time towards pension, you find, is minimal. It's not like you and I who would say like, oh, I'll retire at 55 or 60. So you find that maybe at 40, someone has already hung up his boots. So the contribution that they've been making towards NAPSA and whatnot is largely minimal, and they have to wait until they're 55 to access their money. So we want a tailor-made pension package
for the players themselves.
For the players, yes. So we are seeing how we can have this worked on.
You're talking about pensions, insurance, and so on and so forth. One might want to ask this question. Any plans for FAWUZ to expand, those services that they're offering to also cover and include, family dependents? I mean, you've got some of your players who are your members, who have got young families, a wife, maybe a kid, maybe or even two kids, who are very, very young. So any plans to include them in that scope of services?
That is largely possible. It depends on how we tailor-make the same schemes that I'm talking about. We're currently already in negotiations with some pension houses, and they're giving us options. But for this to be successful, we want FAZ to come on board. We want the ZPL to come on board. If we handle it as three organizations, I think what we'll come up with is very solid. That will ensure that the player and their families are also well taken care of. Yeah. So not to let the cat out of the bag. This is why I keep saying that I'm so anxious that we'll be having a meeting with the FAZ president and his team the time that
they come back.
The
FIFA Council.
So then we can come back and I'll update you and the footballing world on what prospects are there for them.
Okay. We're pressed for time, but I have to ask this question as my final question.
Yeah.
Obviously, the topic of discussion is FAWUZ protecting and promoting the players' interests.
Sure.
As FAWUZ, you've got a number of initiatives and programs. How do you measure success or failure of those initiatives and programs?
Well, the feedback that we get from the players themselves, because look, as I indicated, it's a players' organization.
Yeah.
The starting point is to get hold of the members to say, how do you think we have fared? And I'm happy to report that on the 3rd of June, we'll be having our annual general meeting, where players are invited to come from far and wide to participate, because it's their day.
Okay.
This is now where they come in and tell us that on this, I mean, in this regard, you've done well. Here, maybe, but
room for improvement.
Yes, but on the overall, I think we do place them ahead of everything else that we do.
Okay.
And it's our role to visit clubs. This is what we do. Yeah. This is what we do. So they give us feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes you can't just wake up and start rolling out programs. They have to be in tandem with what the members feel. There are some key programs that I would share with you. For instance, very few people would realize that mental health is a key issue affecting the players. You know, when you are dropped and the coach is not featuring you, you start getting emotional and thinking like, what's happening to me? When they are injured, you know, a lot of stress comes.
Psychological
and
help.
This is why you find there are a number of players that resort to substance abuse. These are the campaigns that we run, side by side, very key campaigns like financial literacy. I would share this experience. Not so long ago, a very successful financial literacy campaign was carried out by FAWUZ, where they involved, you know, key players who featured, like, you know, they are retired now, the likes of Elijah Litan, sharing his personal experience of how you are supposed to, you know, utilize your resources, plan ahead, and that kind of situation. For him, he was speaking from the heart, sharing his story. Like, look, when I was playing, a jet used to bring me from Saudi Arabia. Immediately after the game, they fly me back. That's the respect that he commanded. But he shares his unfortunate personal story. Like, look at me now. So it's a wake-up call to the youngsters. But I'm happy that government, even through the president, made this commitment to say that we're supposed to focus on financial literacy for not just the footballers, but you know, among all sports men and women. So that we guarantee them a future, even as after they retire from sport.
Mr. Joe Kaunda, thanks for your time.
Thank you. I'm here to serve you.
That's a wrap in terms of our main interview, which was focusing on whether FAWUZ is promoting and protecting the interests of the players in Zambian football. We're going to take a short break. On the other side, we wrap up with what is obtaining in terms of I VAR Zambia for this particular week.
It's been a jam-packed edition yet again, full of turns and throughs and spills, if you will. Of course, enjoy the conversations with the guests as well. Chips, it's been definitely one of those to look back to and say, wow, what a show.
Yeah, I think we've delved into a matter that I think most players out there will greatly appreciate, you know, because the welfare of players at the moment, you know, has been a thorny issue considering what we have seen in the last, you know, couple of weeks in terms of, you know, stories trending, you know, players getting, you know, injured on national team duty, not knowing, you know, who can stand up and represent them. But also, you know, the story of, you know, Kelvin Manga in Libya at the moment, you know, is something that has got a lot of people talking, and what role, you know, FAWUZ, who is the players' union, you know, is playing in terms of ensuring that the player does come back to Zambia, you know, safely, and ensure that he continues his football career. So, yeah, FAWUZ, I think, is one of the key stakeholders in terms of the welfare of players. For so long, we've heard players, for instance, not investing, you know, their monies that they've earned in their careers. So all that is part of, you know, player welfare. Do they do enough, you know, in terms of educating, you know, the players on how they can invest their monies properly so that when they decide to retire, like the way James Chamanga is about to retire, ultimately, they're not destitute.
Indeed, well said. And of course, kudos to, of course, our guests who came through. And also shout out to Teresa as well. It's been a great show. And we'll pick it up next week as well. Same time, right here on, of course, I VAR Zambia. From Chips, Teresa, and myself, John Mark Lukonde. Have a lovely day.